Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to Triple R Ryan's Real Reactions, and today we are into more of the Chris Watts case with a title of a video saying Chris Watts' new evidence reveals Nichol Kessinger's involvement. This is from the Behind Criminal Minds YouTube channel. This will be a two-part. I'm going to do about 35 minutes of this and then finish it in part 2 next week. Here we go.
On June 14th of this year, Chris Watts' former cellmate Dylan Tallman released a new book series that
We know about Dylan.
claimed Nichol Kessinger was directly involved in the crimes that Watts committed on August 13th, 2018.
My name is Dylan Tallman, and my DOC number is 504789, and Chris Watts is my brother and my co-author.
Wow, I didn't hear that. Look at that. My brother and co-author. Okay.
Tallman's books offer new insight into the potential motivations and mindset of Chris Watts, providing us the first detailed accounting of Kessinger's purported influence leading up to the crimes, with the books even going on to assert Nichol's alleged involvement in the crimes themselves.
Chris claimed he didn't murder them in cold blood. Chris stated that Nichol helped him cover it up. I believe that 100%. I got to make about 100 videos about Nichol. I've made about 20 about Chris. I got to keep going in on Nichol because I do think she's the puppeteer, the puppet master.
Making the claim that she was present at Survey 319 the morning of August 13th.
I believe it.
In today's video, we will continue our deep dive analysis through the timeline of events, relying on the primary evidence and supported facts surrounding the case. And after providing you with a clear picture,
Will we see the damn shirt today? We'll find out if my viewers know what I'm talking about. That damn North Carolina shirt he's always wearing.
of what we know happened, we will contrast
will
the
I avoid
evidence
it?
against the backdrop of Tallman's version of events, leaving it to you to decide if his new claims ring true.
To me?
With the ongoing hope that as we continue to uncover each layer of the evidence,
I always love that clip right
the
there.
ongoing hope that as we
He
continue
got out of his truck all slow, and then out of nowhere does the run and the handshake. Like come on,
to
let's go.
uncover each layer
Let's go. I got to search your car real quick, but then let's go.
of the evidence, that justice will soon have its day. This is In Search of the Truth, part 2 of the Chris Watts Deep Dive series. When we last met, we revisited the final 2 weeks leading up to the morning of August 13th, 2018. The discovery records provided insight into the trials and tribulations that provided insight into.
Addie asked if Shanann had gone through Watts' phone, asking if he was having an affair. Shanann replied, I did. He denied. No, I didn't. Look, he's deleting messages from his dad. I'm sure he's not that stupid. Well, Addie noted, none of this makes sense. It's not Chris.
The trials and tribulations that Shanann faced during that time as she desperately tried to find a way.
These are some of the texts that we saw in our video on this channel where I read through the text messages from Shanann to her friend. You know, Shanann told Addie that Watts refused to hold her and has told Shanann it is because he's not there. He can't. Shanann told Addie, I canceled the Jenna reveal. Nikki is going to tell me today. I need happy news right now. I said to him, how is this a few months? We were so intimate and what I thought in love. When I left, he said he had a lot of time to think.
Restore a marriage that Chris was already bound and determined to destroy. But just hours after Chris would enact his cruel and unfathomable crimes, his vain attempts at secrecy would unravel under the weight of Shanann's family and friends, who from the very beginning would not relent.
As I always do, let me start this off by saying, rest in peace, Shanann. Rest in peace, Celeste. Rest in peace to Bella.
They were determined to hold Chris Watts accountable for the truly monstrous acts that he had already committed. But it's in this retrospective that we remember and affirm that no victim deserves the crimes perpetrated against them, and no amount of influence takes away from the responsibility that Chris Watts bears now and always.
Correct.
So with that said, let's begin. Just after 5:18 a.m. on August 13th, 2018, we see the lights from Chris Watts' truck turning on. Moments later, we see this person walking towards Chris's work truck. And in future installments, we will return back to this moment in time. Less than 1 minute later,
I gotta watch all this channel's videos. This is the first one I'm watching from this channel.
Chris's work truck is parked in the Watts family driveway. We now know through law enforcement's body cam footage in their discussion with Chris's neighbor Nate that this was the first time that Chris had ever parked his work truck directly in front of his garage.
Thank God for Nate. Thank God for nosy neighbors.
It quickly became evident to law enforcement that Chris clearly intended to obscure anyone from seeing what he was loading into the back of his work truck that morning. Over the next 18 minutes, Chris can be seen loading and unloading various items into the back of his truck, including, tragically, his own family. And just after 5:45, Chris Watts leaves his driveway en route to Survey 319 with both of his children still alive in the back seat. It's now 6:16
Oh, there's that damn shirt. We made it about 3 minutes into the video.
a.m. and Nichol Kessinger makes a call to her close friend Jim. 3 days
6:16 in the morning, Nicole's making phone calls.
later, during Nicole's first in-office interview,
I gotta eventually. I know you guys have been begging me to do it. I know that this interrogation is like 3 hours long. I will one day do it. Now I might break it down into some parts and stuff, so I don't overwhelm myself with info. But I will. I'm telling you, I will get to it.
Detective Kobach would ask her if she was willing to verify her whereabouts for the afternoon of the 13th of August. Nichol would acknowledge that upon arriving home that day, her friend Jim was already present at her apartment, which meant that he could confirm her arrival. However, when pressed to confirm her alibi, this is how Nichol Kessinger responded.
From an investigative point, he could be a person who could say, yeah, I was there at 3:45. He doesn't know Chris. He doesn't know anything. He could say with one phone call, yeah, she came in at 3:45, done.
Totally.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't have to ask anything more than, hi, Chris, my name's Kevin, or Jim. And I'm not saying you have to give it to you.
Just leave Jim
But
alone.
Oh my God, just leave Jim alone. Yeah, I wonder why you want us to leave Jim alone here, huh?
He's
at
not
some
even wrapped
point-
up in this.
If at some point I needed Jim's info to, let's say we couldn't find your phone records, would you
You
tell me
can
who
have
Jim
them.
was?
I will give them to you.
Would you tell me who Jim was if I
If
couldn't
you
get him?
had to.
Okay.
I don't really want to
Great.
involve him in this. So it's not
Perfect.
fair to him. That's not, no. If I
It's
don't
not,
have to do
it's
that.
not fair to
That's
him.
fine.
I get it, but
Nicole's friend Jim is just one of many rabbit holes throughout the vast
we obviously know why she doesn't want them to talk to Jim, because it won't match up with her story, and she probably hasn't had enough time to run an alibi through him yet.
vastness of Watts Island. But during one of Nicole's final interviews with Detective Kobach,
How many
he
are there?
mentioned that she had pictures on her phone
Let me ask you this. There was some sort of attachments that when I was looking at some of your phone stuff today, although very limited, there's a man with a backpack. He's got a beard. He does not look like Chris to me in your photos. Do you know who I'm talking about? Well, that's clearly Jim. It's the first I'm hearing of this Jim guy.
of a heavier set man who was with her at the same time she and Chris were at the sand dunes.
Yes, is he like the little heavier set? Yeah, I'd say he's a little bit bigger.
Nicole then confirms that the picture was of her friend Jim.
Yes, that is my friend Jim. That is the one I was with on the Monday and Tuesday of last week.
And this confirmation would mean
Hope you guys don't mind me reading those, but I just, I know some of you just aren't intently watching, which I get it, so I'm trying to read the things you may not miss to give you context. There's that damn shirt again.
that
Comment in the comments. There's that damn shirt again.
Chris knew exactly who Jim was, and it's Jim who Nicole called in the minutes just after Chris left his house to go to Survey 319 that morning.
First of all, why is she up at 6 a.m. making phone calls like that aren't work related, or is it like a family, or like, come on now.
On its face, Nicole's call to Jim doesn't appear to be out of place. She frequently called him in the days and weeks prior.
Correct. 2 o'clock p.m., 7 p.m., right?
Appeared to be out of
10 a.m.,
place.
10 p.m., 6:16 a.m. Come on.
She frequently called him in the days and weeks prior. However, it's Nichole's location when she made that call that has caught the attention
Yeah, there is 6:16 in the morning in Frederick.
of everyone who has ever evaluated her phone records. But there's something about this entry that even law enforcement overlooked. In the months of Nichole's prior phone records, we are able to ascertain her exact route to and from work. Thanks to these records, we can observe the roads that Nichol Kessinger used on her daily commute from her home to her job at Anadarko and back each and every day. The consistency of her route is the most important part of these records, and this is why. Because on the morning of August 13th, 2018, at 6:16 a.m., for the first time in the history of Nichol Kessinger's supposed drive
Yeah,
to
out of nowhere, she does like a square.
work, her phone is now pinging somewhere that she has never previously been. And the tower that her phone is pinging from would place her in the same proximity of the Watts family home.
It's like, how do law enforcement overlook that? It just drives me nuts that she just got out of this scot-free. I don't want anyone else involved. No, not Jim, not this. Like, oh my God, they bought it. They bought her act. Hook, line, sinker.
The exact same address to the house that Nichol Kessinger
Having concluded her evening tryst with Watts, Kessinger searched the internet on topics like Chris Watts, Shanann Watts, Ronnie Watts, and 2825 Saratoga Trail, which I'm pretty sure is their address. Just a standard Google search, you know.
Googled less than 36 hours earlier.
Wow.
The journey to the oil well site was a little over an hour away from the Watts residence. But while Chris was headed there, he would begin calling and texting his coworkers.
Watts made 3 unanswered calls to Roberts. I'm guessing that's the coworker.
Just after 6:30 a.m.
They probably didn't answer because it was 6 in the morning.
Watts initially tried calling Cody Roberts 3 different times before finally sending him a text asking him, "Where you at?" 1 minute later, at 6:32, Roberts responded, "Just got fuel in Kersey." It's very likely that Chris panicked when he received this message because he knew that Kersey was approximately 30 minutes away from Survey 319.
Oh, I see. He was frantically calling just to make sure that he wasn't going to show up and witness this.
And Chris was still 15 minutes away from the job site. If Cody made the decision to go and help Chris unannounced that morning, it would have completely upended his plan.
Right.
Moments later, Chris attempts to call Cody, who again did not answer his phone.
He was probably like, man, chill.
1 minute later, at 6:33, Chris sends a preemptive lie to Cody. Okay, I'm already at Survey 319. But not wanting to leave anything to chance, Chris sends a second message to Cody. Where are you going first thing this morning? Roberts responds, DPC state. Chris replies in sickening relief with a thumbs up emoji.
He was probably thrilled. God, the damn thumbs up emoji.
But just when he thinks he's in the clear, 2 minutes later, Roberts texts Chris again, informing him that one of their coworkers.
Roberts advised, I need to call Chad and see if he plans on still stroking the 1029 out there. What in the world? What does that mean? To see if it'll pump up. If so, I'll have to meet him, or he will have to get the cannon plugs from Tony, okay?
Chad McNeil was also planning on going out to Survey 319 that morning to work on the well site. Watts immediately asks Cody to confirm with him if he should be expecting
Says, okay, let me know before I leave here.
Chad to show up that morning. Cody replies to Chris, I think Chad might be heading out there today. His phone was breaking up pretty bad, though.
Uh-oh.
Moments after receiving that message, Chris now begins to try and call Chad McNeil.
Likely fearing another employee may show up at 319 while he was disposing of the bodies, Watts made an unanswered call to Chad McNeil. Nobody's picking up Chris's calls.
Who he now knows could likely show up to what will soon be the epicenter of a massive crime scene. Chris knows that he cannot arrive to the work site with his entire family in the truck, especially if his coworkers show up while he's trying to hide the monstrosity of his crimes. So as he speeds down the highway, Chris picks up his phone and tries to get Chad to answer. But again,
Likely fearing another employee may show up, Watts makes another unanswered call to Chad McNeil.
no response. 2 minutes later, and it's now 6:41 a.m. Chris is now just minutes away from Survey 319. He opens up iMessage and sends a quick text to Chad asking him, "You headed out to Survey 319? I'm already out here. Cody said something about pumping up to 1029. Just after 6:43 a.m., and Chad McNeil finally responds. He takes Chris up on his offer and tells him to have Cody Roberts bring the cables that they
McNeil replied, well, since you're out there, you want to fire it up? Have Cody bring his cables.
need to do the job. He acknowledges, and just 9 minutes later, Chris Watts arrives at Survey 319. To those who are familiar with everything that transpired over the course of the next 30 minutes to an hour, all we know with certainty is that whatever remained of the man that Chris Watts was prior to the events of
I
this
still hate that the first thing this man did, thinking his kids and wife were missing, was instead of going in the house, just go into the car.
day,
Definitely
that
looking
man
for
no
something.
longer existed. And no one will ever be able to help me to understand how anyone is capable of what Chris Watts himself has admitted to doing just after he arrived at Survey 319, the morning of August 13th, 2018. But this was just the beginning of Chris's cowardice that day, because at 7:40 a.m., Chris sent Shanann a spoof text
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
that was a calculated measure meant to establish his future alibi for Shanann and the girls' whereabouts. It was a cruel
Watts sent the staged message to Shanann's phone. If you take the kids somewhere, please let me know where they're at, with an exclamation point. Yeah, trying to make it seem like, I texted her earlier. You look, check my phone. Like, I texted her.
intended only as
Like when he said his classic, I called her 2 times. Wow, incredible.
a means to temporarily fool Shanann's friends and her family. In the message, he said, "If you take the kids somewhere, please let me know where they are at."
Oh, you know where they're at, Chris.
And he sent those words while standing mere feet away from them.
Crazy.
Moments later, Chris called Troy McCoy and then began
What a name, dude. Troy McCoy. Sounds like he should be a famous actor. How are you? I'm Troy McCoy.
sending various messages to his coworkers that he knew were
Watts called Luke Eppel, his coworker, and held a 1-minute, 45-second conversation.
planning on showing up to the crime
Luke's probably like, hey, Chris, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. No, I'm definitely not killing my family right now. All right, have a good one, Chris.
scene that he had just created. But at 7:43, Chris Watts took a picture that many now believe establishes that Nichol Kessinger knew far more than she would eventually claim.
Okay, hold on. I gotta Okay, so Watts told Roberts, yes, I'm at 319, 1 sec. Then Watts took this picture. So, anyways, when you hear me saying and stuff, I'm reading exactly word for word. So I told him to prove it because at this point, I mean, the things he'd been saying, like the sheets was kind of weird. So I'm guessing this is obviously Nichol explaining it. You know what it was? It was the wedding ring comment that freaked me out. Like the sheets did, like, was kind of weird at the time. And the fact that I thought he had just lied to me about their separation. But it was like the wedding ring comment, like, Jesus, a lot of likes here. He was so callous, like he was ready to just like cash it in and get some money.
That Nichol Kessinger knew far more than she
Playing so dumb. And they say him to prove what? To prove that they had told to go to the field right away. Okay, so. And he's like, how do you want me to do that? And I was like, you take screenshots of your Andarko phone and you text them to me. And did he do that? Yes, he did. Okay, all right. And he didn't send me the whole conversation, but there was 2 pictures of a release followed intermittently with like there was text like on either side of the picture, and it looked I didn't get everything. He just sent me like part of the conversation and I didn't have dates and times on either. like, you couldn't see the dates and times of what he was sending me. So he could have been sending me something that was...
would eventually claim
Lord have mercy, I feel like I'm having a stroke reading that.
to law enforcement. Over the next hour, Chris's coworkers would begin to show up.
She's just playing dumb. That's all. He was lying to me. I'm a victim.
Site, completely clueless to what Chris had just done. No one noticed anything particularly strange with Chris concerning his demeanor, his clothing. In fact, the only thing that seemed out of the ordinary was the physical location of where Chris parked his truck that morning. But nothing that would have in any way revealed the clues to the crimes that this location would now bear. In retrospect, it's hard to imagine how or why Chris Watts ever thought he would get away with this. Over the years, many have speculated that limerence played a role in the irrationality of Chris's behavior.
I truly think he didn't think he was going to get caught because I think he didn't know that there were cameras. I didn't think he thought about his neighbor figuring that out. And then I also just think he figured no one's ever going to look inside this oil bin and no one's going to be trying to uncover a body out here. And what's sad is he was probably right. If he never told people where they were, I don't know if they ever would have found those bodies. Maybe Shenan's over time, but definitely not his children.
Being a sort of infatuation that created a blind obsession that all but prevented Chris from having a rational view of his own actions.
What is limerence? Limerence was first described by Dorothy Tenoff in 1979 as an extreme form of unrequited love that causes significant distress. Unlike normal infatuation, in which both people are obsessed with each other, limerence is one-sided. Limerence shares characteristics of OCD, as well as addiction, and can result in a diagnosis of OCD if symptoms are significant enough to meet the criteria. It's great reading a statement like that without the word like. This is how Nichol would have said it. So like limerence was kind of first described by like Dorothy Tenoff in like 1979 as like a...
Truthfully, I have resigned the mental evaluation of Chris Watts to the professionals because the more I learn about what he has admitted to doing to his wife and children that morning, the less I care about his reasons. At 8:25 a.m., Chris would stage another call to Shenan's phone.
Watts made a staged 23-second call to Shenan's phone. You know how just disgusting you have to be calling your wife's phone knowing damn well that you just killed her and buried her body? Like, what a crazy psycho.
And just 1 minute later, he would search for Primrose School at Vista Ridge. Primrose would...
Okay, so now he's trying to act like a concerned father, searched it, called the school. Then during this, Watts called, told staff that his daughters would not be attending school there any longer. Oh, wait, that's crazy.
Was the academy where his girls were supposed to be enjoying their first day of school.
That's crazy.
Instead, Watts would call the school and concoct a story about how the girls would no longer be attending.
So he didn't want the school to start calling and be like, something's going on, we haven't seen the girls, and contact the police. So instead say, yep, unfortunately, we're moving to Aruba. So thank you, though. See you later.
The staff could even...
It almost seems like, to me, like we've talked about before, it seems like this was very rushed. Like, this was clearly not an insane plan, because he wasn't covering bases until the day it happened. And then suddenly he was like, oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to call the school. It's like, it seemed like it just kind of was spiraling.
Formulate much of a response, Chris hung up the phone just after 9 a.m. and Shenan's phone sends out an appointment reminder. It was for a doctor's appointment
for the baby
that would become one of the early catalysts that would warn Shenan's friends and family that something had gone very wrong.
And he definitely did not expect Shenan's friends to be that concerned so fast. He probably thought, okay, I have at least 3 to 4 days, right? Maybe even a week before people start saying, hey, where's Shenan? I haven't heard from Shenan.
Moments later, Chris would make another exceedingly odd phone call to his real estate agent, Ann Meadows.
Just another one of those things where it feels like he was rushing. All right, so the kids aren't going to be here. Also, we're moving. Okay, yep, we're leaving. See ya. Put the house up for sale. It's like, okay, you don't think people would put two and two together, Chris?
2 days later, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, aiding the Frederick Police Department, would call Ann to speak with her after learning of her connection to Chris and Shanann. CBI agent Stacy Galbraith spoke with Ann, who explained the strange conversation that she had with Chris on the morning of the 13th. Since the beginning,
It says at 8:28 in the morning on the 13th of August, Ann received a 3-minute phone call from Chris Watts. Ann was surprised and actually taken back when Chris called, as it was Shanann that Ann usually talked with about real estate. Ann was their agent when they bought the house they were living in. She only talked with Chris maybe twice during the transaction. Chris asked Ann if Shanann had called her yet. She told Chris that she sent her a message, an iMessage, and that Ann suggested that he and Chris get pre-approved for a loan.
Ann had almost exclusively dealt with Shanann during the overall process of
I also bet that the school was probably confused because you know for a fact they don't talk to Chris. Everything was probably set up by Shanann. So suddenly Chris is calling the school saying, they're not going to be here anymore. Chris is calling the realtor saying, yeah, we want to put the house up for sale. She's probably like, really? Shanann would have said something. Like, I never talked to you. What's, like they clearly.
buying and selling their home. In fact, to that point, she had only ever spoken with Chris twice ever. So the fact that Chris was calling her and asking if she had spoken with Shanann was not just odd, it was completely out of place. Chris then proceeded to tell her that he and Shanann were getting a divorce.
Chris told Ann that no one knew yet, but he and Shanann were getting divorced after not getting along for over a year. Ann was shocked and told Chris that she was sorry. He told Ann that not even his family knows.
And that she was the very first person.
Imagine saying, hello, my realtor who I've spoken to twice. I am giving you information that no one on earth knows.
Even before his own family, to learn of this new and considerable life change. Less than an hour later, Centura Health would call Shanann's phone and leave a message after she failed to show up for her 9:15 appointment. And at 10:10 a.m., Chris Watts opened Google and searched for the lyrics to the Metallica song, Battery. We have since learned that Chris shared
Just absolutely insane.
these exact same lyrics with Nichol Kessinger.
Lashing out the action, returning the reaction, weak are ripped and torn away. Hypnotizing power, crushing all that cower, battery is here to stay.
Who replied by asking him what the song meant to him. Between the pictures of volcanoes just
Smashing through the boundaries, lunacy has found me, cannot stop the battery. Pounding out aggression turns into obsession, cannot kill the battery, cannot kill the family. That's crazy. Battery is found in me.
hours earlier, the cold and apathetic mannerisms that Chris had been displaying towards Shanann, the lies surrounding his night with
Crushing all deceivers, mashing non-believers, never-ending potency, hungry violence seeker, feeding off the weaker, breeding on insanity.
Nichol at the Lazy Dog, the affair that he intended on turning into a marriage, and even his own concurrent statements that he had been premeditating.
Circle of destruction, hammer comes crushing, powerhouse of energy, whipping up a fury, dominating flurry, we create the battery. Well, I think we know what was playing in his head when all this was going on, when he was ending the lives of his family. I'm pretty sure he was probably singing this in his mind.
These crimes for weeks prior. It's beyond evident that Chris Watts' obsession with the woman and life that he would never have completely overshadowed whatever good may have existed in him before he chose to destroy his family over a complete mirage.
Yep.
10:28 a.m., Sandra Ruszczyk, Shanann's mother, worriedly texts Chris, asking him, "Is Shanann okay?" The two would speak minutes later, where Chris would manufacture the first iteration of his story, claiming that Shanann was in one of her moods.
Ruzak said that Chris told Sandra that he had texted Shanann a few times and that she was in one of her moods. Isn't that crazy though? It's like he killed her and then he's still like putting her down by being like, yes, you know how she gets. Yeah, she's in one of those moods. Like, you're right. They had a small fight and Shanann was going to a friend's house. Ruchek said that Sandra received a phone call from Shanann's friend Nichol saying the police were at Shanann's house because she was missing. Nichol said they couldn't get into the house because of the security latch that Ruchek has installed on the front door.
That they had a small fight the night before and that she was going to a friend's house. At 10:33, immediately after lying to Shanann's mother, Chris is now searching for hotels in Aspen, Colorado. He even called the Westin Snowmass Resort in Aspen just 9 minutes later. And this is where I want to ask you, the audience, a question.
Ask away, my friend.
Why do you think Chris was searching for a hotel getaway at this specific moment in time? Now, we can all agree that Chris's behavior was not that of a man who anyone would qualify as being cogent. However, it would seem that his primary motivations during this period of time were solely based on the preservation of his relationship with Nichol Kessinger. And if you recall, in Dylan Tallman's books, Chris was reported to have said that on the morning of August 13th, just hours before this hotel search and phone call, Nichol had allegedly told him to choose between her and his family, and that when he did choose her, she held him and promised that she would marry him.
Jesus. She told me to finish what I started. Nichol told Chris, choose between her and his family. Nichol held me and then promised me that she would marry me.
And said that she would take care of everything for him. So again, I want to ask you the question. If Nichol Kessinger was truly oblivious to Chris's actions, as she will later claim, then why would Chris be making plans that included her unless he believed that she would go?
Yep.
Moments later.
This was almost probably like a getaway celebration in a sense. All right, I did it. It's done. Okay, let's get out of here. You know, let's go. Let's go to Aspen and hang out with each other.
At 10:44 a.m., Sandra Ruszczyk calls Chris again. She would go on to call Chris one final time, as it was now becoming completely obvious that Chris was not going to help the Ruszczyks locate Shanann.
That's how you say it, Ruszczyk.
That in fact, he was likely the reason that Shanann wasn't answering her phone. Just after 12:16 p.m., and now every single one of Shanann's friends and family are becoming aware that Shanann and the girls are missing. Chris then receives a message from Josh Rosenberg. Hey bro, Cassie asked me if I've heard from Shanann today. I guess she and Nikki can't get a hold of her. Have you heard from her at all today? But while Josh, Cassie, and everyone were trying to find answers at this exact moment in time, I
know for a fact Chris was probably so pissed. Like, God, why is everyone texting me about Shanann? God, like, just relax, dude. Calm down, guys.
Preoccupied,
Watts took 2 photographs of sunflowers in an open prairie.
This picture of the surrounding landscape. Flowers, and more specifically, sunflowers, had been a sign of Chris's devotion to Nichol Kessinger.
Oh my gosh.
During the entirety of their relationship. In fact, just weeks before, we can see that on July 16th at 8:35 a.m., Chris took a picture of sunflowers near the Anadarko corporate office. One day later, on the
It's a sign, babe.
17th of July, Chris again took pictures of flowers that he no doubt shared with Nichol.
Of course.
Because that following day on the 18th, his relentless love bombing over the past several weeks appears to have worked.
She sent him a bikini pic. Hold on, that says, for the first time, Watts transferred assorted images of Kessinger, some semi-nude, into the secret calculator application. The secret calculator app is crazy. Like, yes, what are you doing on that app? I am just calculating. Why does it say that you spend 9 hours a week on the calculator app? Big eye of love equations. Certain images were taken by Watts as evidenced by his reflection in the mirror in the background.
This love bombing over
There are 41 images that he transferred.
the past several weeks appears to have worked. Eventually, when law enforcement did search what little evidence remained on Nichole's cell phone,
This would not be the last time he took photographs of flowers. I suspect he took these 4 and shared them with Kessinger. She has an affinity with flora and has a wide assortment of flower pictures in her phone. 100%. It's his way of saying, look, we're connected. Look, even after I did all this, look. See the sunflowers? It's meant to be. We're meant to be.
after
I almost feel like there is a lot of desperation with Chris. It seems like Nichol Kessinger, in my opinion, held the power. It seems like she was in control, in a sense, and that he was like the desperate, like, I'll do anything for you. I'll do anything. And she was like, oh, anything? And took that to a level that many would never even consider possible.
she deleted virtually every
I got to hear more about her and that Jim guy, though. And the fact that she was like, oh, no, don't get Jim involved. It's like, a guy that you speak to every single day almost?
everything from it. They did find a considerable number of flower pictures in her phone, many of which were likely sent by Chris during the course of their affair. It's now just 1 minute later at 12:17, and Chris receives an alert on his Vivint Security phone app. On his app, he can see Nichol Atkinson standing in front of his house,
You know his stomach and heart dropped.
trying to get inside in an attempt to locate Shanann and the girls.
Like, I guarantee you, he's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, Nicole, go away.
Chris knows that Nichol Atkinson will not find them there, so hoping to keep the situation at bay, he calls her and speaks with her for just under a minute. Watts had still not responded to Josh's text, so at 12:21 p.m., Chris finally sends a message back. I just talked to Nikki. Shanann went to a friend's house with the kids today.
I love that he always said, like, a friend's house to everybody. Obviously never gave a friend's name so that he could keep it some sort of a mystery. Like, yeah, she just said she was going to a friend's. Maybe it's a friend no one's ever heard of.
haven't heard from her since. I will keep you updated, though. Josh would reply by telling Chris that they were worried. Chris responded the way that he always does, cold, apathetic, a man who seems like he truly does not comprehend what empathy is or how to use it.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to know how to be concerned and worried. It's very interesting.
At 12:27, Watts calls Nichol Atkinson back. He's now starting to realize that she's not going anywhere. It's around this time that Chris leaves work to head home because Nichol Atkinson has made it clear that she's not backing down until she finds Shanann and the girls.
What a legend. There's a really great Nicole in this, and there's a really shitty one.
Atkinson had already been deeply involved in trying to locate Shanann throughout that morning. As we know, she had picked up Shanann from the airport and dropped her off just hours earlier.
It's just crazy that she knew. Nichol Atkinson knew. She knew. I think she knew the entire time. Some women's intuition is incredible. I think she knew. I think when she saw Chris and was standing right there, I think in the back of her mind, she was thinking, this dude did it. Like, he did it. Especially when she brought up the pool. Where we've seen videos. I watched their home videos, right? There's a video on this channel, me watching their home videos, and they're at the pool. And then when she brings up, oh, could they be at the pool? It's a nice hot day. It was like, no. Well, why are you so, why no?
Right around 1:45 a.m. Atkinson was already deeply aware of the problems that Chris and Shanann were having.
Yep.
She had also been a part of the ongoing conversation surrounding his strangely expensive meal at the Lazy Dog, and she knew
That's exactly where they knew that he was probably having an affair.
of Shanann's despondency over the possibility that Chris was having an affair. But Nichol also knew that Shanann had an important doctor's appointment with Dr. Stephanie Traver that same morning at 9:15 a.m., an appointment that was made specifically for gender and genetic testing for her pregnancy. So when 9:15 came and went, and
Yeah, I mean, Nichol definitely knew that Shanann wouldn't have missed that. Obviously, she knew. You just know when something's wrong. It's hard to explain, you know, but you just know. When you know, you know. Especially women. Women are smarter than men, and you guys have much better intuition than we do. Okay? And I'm a man, I'm not afraid to admit that.
Shanann wasn't answering her texts or calls, Nichol Atkinson stepped into action and went to the doctor's office with her son.
I did not know she did that. Wow. She was not messing around.
When she arrived at Centura Health's office, she learned that Shanann was a no-show to her appointment. It was at that moment that she knew she needed to find Shanann, so she rushed over to the Watts residence and began looking into their house to see if she could find any signs of Shanann and the girls. But at that moment, Nichol Atkinson had no earthly idea just how important of a role that she was about to play in a crime that Chris Watts was already desperately trying to cover up. At 12:27 p.m., Chris is in the midst of his own self-inflicted chaos when he receives a message from his realtor, Ann Meadows. She says, "Hi, I'm working on your market analysis. I would like to bring my listing coordinator with me when I bring it to your house. Did you finish the basement? Are there any other upgrades to the house?" A few minutes later at 12:31, Addie messaged Chris asking if Shanann was okay. Everyone is worried. It's not like her to not respond, and we haven't heard back from her all day.
See, Chris is the type of guy that like probably isn't a good friend to people, probably doesn't text too much, doesn't really show a lot of emotion or empathy, where Shanann was that type of a friend. And I do believe that Chris downplayed how important Shanann was to a lot of people. Clearly she wasn't important enough to him and his family and his mom, Sydney, his sister, his dad, all that, but she was very important to a lot of people. And I don't think since he, I think struggles to even understand emotion, I don't think he realized that. That's why I think he thought he had about a week to get away and to create alibis and to do things. And I think his goal was to just say, hey, she's missing, you know, and he had Nichol Kessinger the whole time probably saying, I'm going to take care of it. We're going to figure this out. I got your back. I'll be an alibi, all this stuff. Right. And I think he thought, cool, we'll just say she's missing. The kids, they're gone. Please come back. And then we'll just slowly drift into our new life. I'll sell the house and then we'll move. I truly think that's how he thought it was going to play out. And then Nichol Atkinson was like, no. And then Shanann's other friends and other people in her lives were like, this is, you might be a cold, heartless person, Chris, but we're not. We're actually worried. I really believe that that's how this whole timeline unfolded.
Chris would initially ignore this message, but by this point in time, it's obvious that he has completely underestimated Shanann's friends and family, let alone the lengths they were about to go to force Chris to be accountable for everything he had just destroyed. 10 minutes later, and Chris is back on the phone with Nichol Atkinson while rushing home. But just 2 minutes later, after their 40-second phone call, Shanann's friend Cassie stages the first significant confrontation of Chris in her valiant attempt to get answers. Cassie messages Chris at 12:43 p.m. Shanann is in a very bad way emotionally, and I'm worried about her. I know you're having issues, but I don't know to what extent. However, I do know that I have never seen her so broken to an extent that I am worried. Chris responded, she went to a friend's house with the kids, but she won't tell me where though. When I get home, I will update you.
I almost think and feel like Chris was happy about a text like this because he could show that to someone and say, I mean, you could see, look at what Cassie said. She was not doing well, man. She was, I mean, who knows what she could be doing right now and where she could be. She was unhinged, right? I feel like he almost wanted to create that narrative. a scorned woman who is about to go through a separation. She doesn't, so she left, man. I don't know where she is.
A few minutes later, Cassie messages again. Sweetie, nobody knows about you or her other than Nicole Atkinson and I. So where would she go if not with Nikki or not to Arizona where I'm at? Her car and shoes and everything is at the house. What the heck is going on with you guys that she would totally shut out everything? It's not like her, Chris. Now, I believe that what Chris is about to say in response to that message is one of the most important views into his psychological makeup and the way that he views himself in the world. Listen closely. I told Nikki about what was happening so she wouldn't freak out anymore. I think Christina knows as well. Shanann and I talked last night and I told her I want to sell the house and get something smaller. Separation would be best right now if we can't work through our issues. Now, essentially, Chris is saying that in response to Nicole Atkinson showing up to his house, that he told her that him and Shanann were having problems and that she left to a friend's house. He poorly conjures these god-awful lies that no reasonable person would ever believe.
Right, because they're her best friends. So they'd be like, right, Chris, what friend? Oh, I don't know, she didn't say. Oh, she didn't tell you where she was taking your children? I don't know where she went. Cassie doesn't know where she went. No one in her family knows. She just up and left. Really? And it's like, you expect me to believe that?
Seemingly as a means to buy time. And while he's racing back to his...
And I have a feeling that Nichol Kessinger was one of the people that was helping him come up with these kind of lies and alibis. Right? I think that she was probably feeding him things. Here's what you do. You blame the separation. Blame this. Say there's a divorce. Say you want to sell the house, Chris. Chris, call the realtor. Chris, call the school. Chris, like it feels like Nicole was probably the one telling him to do all these things because Chris doesn't seem very competent. He looks like the type to be like, oh, well, I didn't think about that.
House in an effort to stifle Nicole Atkinson's determined attempts at gaining entry into his home. Chris ends that text message by saying this: I really don't want you to think that I'm a bad person, Cassie.
Uh-oh.
This is a sentiment that Chris Watts continues to hold to this very day. In fact, in Dylan Tallman's book, he even reflects on this very same issue. Chris and Tallman are having a discussion about how they are viewed by the public. Chris says, I wish people would judge me on my whole past. Instead, they only judge me on that one day.
They only judged me on the day I killed my wife and children and unborn child. Oh, I wish they would judge me when I ordered dinner for my family 2 weeks before. Why aren't they praising me for ordering pizza?
And to those who question the veracity of Tallman's books, it seems to me...
I believe everything that dude says. I'm serious.
That this is exactly something that Chris would say.
Right.
Because he lives under the delusion that his previous life as a parent and as a husband somehow absolves him of the horrific things he had done just hours before sending this text message. Chris seems more concerned about how he's perceived than taking any form of responsibility for his actions.
Right. If an innocent man whose husband, or you're a husband of someone who's missing and your children are missing, do you really think you would end a text message saying, I don't want you to think I'm a bad person? Because that wouldn't even be in your mind, because you'd know, well, I didn't do anything, so I'm not in the wrong here. Let's figure out what's going on. You wouldn't even be thinking about that, because an innocent person wouldn't say they're a bad person because they're innocent. This is something a guilty person would say in some sort of self-admission of like, well, I hope you don't hate me. It's like, for what? Wait, what did you do, Chris? What did you do? I'm just concerned about Shanann. Why would I think you're a bad person? People go through separations and divorce. What else is going on?
And that's precisely why Chris Watts has sprinted towards an entirely new obsession with religion, because he cannot handle the fact that he is objectively a bad person. But it's this next comment by Cassie that is the literal definition of catharsis. Because right after Chris sent his pathetic attempt at looking for validation, mere hours after what he had just done, Cassie has had enough. Right now, Chris, I don't care about you. I don't care about your relationship or what type of person you are or are not. And I don't even care what I think of you. And I'm not trying to be rude when I say that.
Totally get what she's saying. Like, Chris, shut the hell up. Your wife is missing. I'm so scared. I don't care about your feelings right now. Where is she? What's going on? Like, I totally get it. Like, stop talking about yourself. Let's figure out what's going on with Shanann.
And right after Cassie says exactly what all of us are thinking, Chris continues to demonstrate the apparent actions of an unbothered sociopath. Because while he's racing back home, he makes sure to take the time to respond to his real estate agent's previous questions.
in the midst of his wife being missing and his children being missing, yeah, the basement's still unfinished. No other upgrades. Hey, let me know if we get a good deal.
Telling her the basement is still unfinished. No other upgrades. By 1:03 p.m., Cassie is done messing around. She rightfully chastises Chris, telling him that her only concern is
Cassie.
for his wife and for her.
Cassie chastised Watts, explaining her only concern was for his damn wife and her well-being. Cassie advised, Nikki is calling the police, Cassie told Watts. She is broken emotionally. Her blood sugar dropped due to not eating, and it could cause her to pass out. So unless you want the police to bust your damn door down, you get home and check on your family. Good job, Cassie. Like, good job. Good job being a great friend. And I'm so sorry to Shanann's friends for having to go through this. It must have been devastating, but good for them for not caving to his bullshit.
Well-being. She tells Chris that Nikki is calling the police, saying that Shanann is broken emotionally. She explains to him that Shanann's blood sugar dropped due to not eating, and it could easily cause her to pass out. So unless he wanted the police to bust down his door, he better get home and check on his family. 2 minutes later, at 1:05 p.m., Chris responds, I'm going home, Cassie. I'm on my way. Don't call the police.
I mean, come on. Come on. I did not know he ever said something like that. Hey, don't call the police. Please. No. Like, your wife is missing, your kids are missing. Yeah, but let's figure it out together.
I will be there in 45 minutes. It's hard to imagine what would have happened if Shanann's friends were not as involved in her life as they were.
Imagine telling her best friend, I'll be there in 45 minutes. No worries. And then thinking, and it's like, okay, well, let's just say she is passed out, Chris, or something happened that way. 45 minutes is a very long time if it's a medical emergency or something happened to the kids. 45 seconds is a while, let alone 45 minutes. I'll be home in like an hour. No, don't call the police, dude. That's insane.
If Chris had been given the opportunity to spin his lies uninterrupted for just one more day. Just after 1:13 p.m. and Troy McCoy texts Chris asking if everything was okay, telling him, if you need anything, let me know. 1 minute later, and Chris is still answering random, completely unimportant questions to his real estate agent.
He legitimately is a psychopath. 3-car garage. I will drive by the 6508 address when I get home, just like no care in the world. No care in the world. He prefers a 3-car garage.
At 1:31 p.m., Nicole Atkinson calls Chris again, trying to ascertain where he is. He tells her that he's still en route and he will be there shortly. But Nicole Atkinson refuses to wait even 1 minute longer, so she calls the Frederick Police Department and eventually speaks with Detective Dave Baumhover. During the call, she conveys the urgency of the situation, that Shanann was not only pregnant, but that she was also diagnosed with lupus and diabetes.
I didn't know that either. So that's why she was thinking maybe it was a medical emergency. Like, okay, she's pregnant, has diabetes, has lupus, hasn't been eating. I could totally see why they think, I think she's upstairs passed out, you know?
Atkinson would
And Chris is just like, yeah, I'll be there in an hour. There's a bit of traffic. I'm going to hit Sonic on the way home if you want something. They got a cherry limeade if you want. It's like
explain that after she left Shanann's doctor's office, she arrived at the Watts residence and tried to gain entry into their home. However, the front security door interior latch was locked and prevented her from accessing the house. It was then that Atkinson's son looked in the garage window and noticed that Shanann's vehicle, along with the girls' car seats, were still inside. Just after 1:40 p.m., Officer Coonrod responded to Nichol Atkinson's request for a well check. This body cam footage begins when Officer Coonrod arrives to the Watts family home. Upon arriving, both the officer and Nichol Atkinson attempt to see if they can gain entry into the house or to locate Shanann and the girls. Approximately 15 minutes later, Chris Watts arrives, and this is the first time we get to see just how suspicious his behavior was from the moment he stepped out of his vehicle.
So I'm going to guess that like Nichol Atkinson probably truly thought it was a medical emergency until she got to see Chris and see how he was acting in his body language.
Eventually, Chris is interviewed by Detective Baumhover, who arrives at the scene a short time later. Chris will concoct his first set of lies to law enforcement, claiming that her disappearance was only because he and Shanann were having marital problems. He told Detective Baumhover that he woke up at 4 a.m. and left for work at 5:27. However, like most things with Chris Watts,
Chris said both he and Shanann were in tears, but they did not argue. Chris said Shanann told him she was going to take the girls to a friend's house.
none of that was true. Chris claimed...
But like, just imagine like your pregnant wife and your two young children. The last you saw her, she was crying. And then she says, I'm taking the kids and going to a friend's house. And you not being like, what friend? Where are you going? And just being like, okay, sounds good. See you later.
that both he and Shanann were in tears that morning. However, they did not argue, and that Shanann had told him that she was going to take the girls to a friend's house later that day. Throughout the entirety of this body cam footage, the only thing we know at this point in time with certainty is that Chris was capable of...
The neighbor, it makes it look like he's bald with an orange head, but his hat is so tight on his head. For a second, you look at it right here, it looks like he spray painted his head.
No, at this point in time with certainty is that Chris was capable of committing a crime, the details of which most people could not begin to fathom, and just hours later, he is completely calm, cool, and collected. It's why so many of people have made the assertion of psychopathy when analyzing his behavior and body language, because regardless of what Watts or his family has to say, he appears completely unbothered.
The classic news interview. I just want him back, man. I want him back. Bella, Celeste, Shanann, if you hear this, just come on home. Like, just that interview he gave is just so awful.
However,
it's been too quiet in the house. Yeah, I bet, Chris. Why don't you invite over your mistress, Nicole?
that was about to change when law enforcement learned that Chris's neighbor Nate had evidence that proved that Chris was the only person who was seen leaving the Watts residence that entire day. Watching this footage of Chris Watts standing there.
This is like the most, we've seen this in how many videos? This is probably the most iconic footage in true crime history.
Hands above his head, clearly panicked and barely able to breathe or maintain his composure, is one of the few moments that we actually get to see Chris squirm. Because it's this footage that not only confirmed what law enforcement would go on to use to prove their case against him, it would also become the cornerstone of the allegations against Nichol Kessinger.
Yep.
And before we're done with this series, it's my hope that you will understand exactly why. By 2:10 p.m., Chris is now receiving messages from many of the friends of Shanann. Christina Meacham texts Chris, "What's going on? Where are you? We are so worried." 1 minute later, Chris staged another fake text to Shanann.
Oh my God. Where are you?
Sending, "Where are you?" just after 2:11 p.m. Around that same time, Shanann's friends, Cassie, Christina, Nicole Atkinson, and Addie all began a group text, sharing their growing concern over Shanann's well-being. 2:26 p.m., Chris responds to Christina Meacham, "The police are here. I'll call you when I know." Shortly after 3:46 that afternoon, law enforcement finished their first interview with Chris Watts, and it's clear to them that nothing is adding up. They would find Shanann's phone, her purse, her car, her medications. Everything is still in their house, along with the girls' car seats and everything else that Shanann would have brought if she had ever left the house that day.
That's why I think that this was a rushed thing for Chris, because like if it was very well thought out, these were all things that he would have gotten rid of. You know, the only thing is like, oh, the big reveal for him was the wedding ring when he brings it out. Like he can't believe it. But like all the other things, I just think Chris is not a smart dude and just didn't think about it. You know, didn't think about like, wait, so she went to this place and she went here, but she didn't bring this? You know? What are you doing, Chris? Wait, she went to a friend's house, but her car's here? What? Like, he had no story, but he had no story, and he couldn't say, like, oh, yeah, well, someone picked her up, because then the cameras would have caught it. He was screwed either way. All right. That is the end of the part 1. I'm going to finish this next week, because this video is already an hour, and I have to stream soon. I'm still that info about Jimmy and Nicole, man. That's some shady stuff. If you made it to the end of the video, usually I do my little halfway thing and ask for likes and comments, so we may not get that many on this one. But if you made it to the end, please like the video before you go. Let me go full screen. Hi. Please like the video before you go. Thank you to people that are on the channel that are hyping the video. Some people are confused. Like, what does hyping do if I hype a video? And I saw a good example of it from Sasha in my Discord. Look at it like a repost on TikTok or a retweet. You're basically saying, I like this. And then you're putting your hype points into the video, and all it's going to do is help me hit a bigger algorithm. That's all. You're showing it to more people. You're using your points just like a retweet or a repost or a reblog, and you're saying, I like this, here you go. And it helps it. That's why they don't allow hypes on YouTube channels with over 500,000 subscribers. I still think even 100,000 is a big channel, but like it's supposed to be for channels that are smaller to help them grow. So that is that. Make sure to leave some comments on this video. As always, there should be a lot, because you could say a million things about this trial. And of course, the big one, subscribe to the channel. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Go check. Just give me a chance. Go check. Maybe you haven't subscribed yet. If you do, please consider subscribing. I post 4 times a week on this channel. And come December, for the whole month, I'll be posting 5 times a week. A lot of content. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays at 5 p.m. PST. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, to my triple army that has the notifications turned on. You guys don't miss a video. You guys are the ones helping this channel grow. And you guys, I owe all of the excitement and growth from this channel too. It's not you. It's not me. It's literally you, in a good way. You're the reason for all of this. But that is it for me. Right here on Triple R, Ryan's Raw Reactions. Please don't bother me while I'm watching true crime. I said it without stuttering. Peace out.